Genders and Ladymen, I'm Spiro, and I'm not a wizard. Today's video, I'm going to run through how to extract files from the from a c64 emulator, the d64 files, onto your PC, onto your computer, for the purpose of being able to edit source files. So on the emulator here, I've been working on the adventure gamebook editor thing, so I've got all the source code here. I saved that onto a disk. Now I've unmounted it from here just so I don't get corruption, but what I've got is the d64 file, so it's it's in here. I've basically saved a bunch of different versions of the code as I was writing it. So there are multiple source files on this disk. So the first thing we want to do is using Vice's command line tool called C1541, and this is a command line tool that will allow you to work on D64 files. Alright, so if I go C1541 and the name of the file, of the D64 file, that loads it, and we can see here it's device number 8. So if we do a dir, this shows me the disk, so that's the disk title and the headers, and here are all of the files on the disk. Actually, I can remount this because I made a copy of that image. So if I do a directory listing of that disk, we can see here that's what's on there. So all these PRG files are basically the basic source. These sequential files are the data created by that as I was playing and testing and debugging. So what I want to do is, my goal is to get this final version out onto my computer so that I can edit it with, say, Visual Studio Code. So now there's a couple of commands we can use to extract files. We can either extract one file at a time using the read command, or we can extract all of the files and it will extract everything on the mounted D64 file to your file system. So let's go extract. So we don't need to specify anything else. I've only loaded or attached one disk, and it's in drive unit 8, so I don't need to specify a parameter. So if I just go extract, okay, so that's interesting. It can't save, it couldn't open a file because there's one file with just a comma. So here's my excellent planning ahead, but it should have extracted at least all the files up to that. In fact, it extracted all of the files except that, and that's great. So what I want to do is, if we go back in there, I'll show you how to extract just one file at a time. So we can use the read command. So this is basically saying read source. So it reads the source from the disk image and copy it into destination in the file system. So what that's meaning is the file on here on the D64 is the source. The destination is my Linux machine, my local hard drive. So I don't need to specify that because that's the default. You can save it into a different path name if you want. So all I want to do is actually I can save it to a different file name, I believe. So if I go read ed 07 and save it to game editor 07, I think, reading file ed. Okay, so yep, there we go. So the destination, because I already had a file called ed07, if I had just gone read, it would have tried to overwrite that. So I've specified a new file name. Now, this is the tokenized. So when BASIC stores source code on the disks, it's tokenized, which to the Linux machine or Windows or Mac or whatever your normal operating system is, it will look like a binary file because there are more than just 7-bit ASCII characters in there. So as we can see, if we look at, let's look at the first 100 lines, or up to line 100, you can see that there is this copyright 1984. So the second line, 20, there we go. So the first line we've got is rem c64 adventure editor. So the token that it has saved the rem command in is 8F. Then there's a few control codes to indicate the end of that line. Next source line is 1 rem in the copyright. Again, we've got the same token here, and then the copy, the text. Then there's a third rem statement, so we've got another token of 8F and a bunch of dashes. The next line is a poke. So the poke command is this here, which is a hex number, hex 97. Right, so you'll see poke 53280, 0, the token 53280, 0, the colon, then the other token poke, which is the same, and so on and so on. So this obviously is not readable in a normal text editor. You want to convert this to to something you can use in a local text editor. So there's another command that comes with Vice, and that is petcat. So cat comes from the Linux command cat, which is to display a file to the screen. On Windows or DOS, the equivalent command would be type. So if we go petcat, there's a bunch of different options. We won't go into this here, but it has an odd format if you're going to do it. So you're going to do petcat. We're going to need to set the output file name. Excuse me. Then we're going to need to go -- and then the file list that we're inputting, that we want to convert to this file, this output file. So we go petcat -o. Now we've got this file name. Oh, bumsticks. What did I call my file name? Game editor 07. So let's call it output game editor 07.bas for basic source dash dash game editor 07. So that is the original tokenized file. This is our output that we're going to create, and we hit that, and now we've got the de-tokenized file, which you'll notice is a little bit bigger. And the reasons for that is that it has expanded a lot of these commands, like so print will now be, instead of being a single token, will be 5 bytes effectively in this file. So if we now look at that, we can go less. Let's do less minus s so that it doesn't do any word wrapping. And we've now got source code. It has the line numbers in the file, and that's fine because that's part of the basic source code. But what it's also done is it's got these, if we look at line 18, you'll see that there's these PETSCII characters, and it's converted those into like escape code type, readable escape codes, right? So the reverse Q on here indicates that I pressed the down arrow, so that's going down a line, down a line. The reversed E is the control code for white text, and so you'll see here we got M2 string equals down down white, and then the text. So that's it. If I wanted to bring that up in Visual Studio Code, eventually Visual Studio Code will load. It's probably checking for updates, that's why it's so slow. Here we go, and there we go. We now have our source code from the c64 onto our PC. So that's doable if you've got a physical discs on your real hardware, and of course there's an update available. Thank you very much. If you've got them and you can save them onto an SD card, memory stick, and then you get those onto your computer, you can grab those D64 files and you can convert your source code into readable stuff. So there you go. I hope that's helpful. As you can see here, I am working on that editor, which is my next stage of going through that Adventure Writer game book, and this particular editor is horrible. Yeah, I'll get into that in another video. I mean, it's probably intended to be horrible so that you need to work on it, and I guess that helps you with the learning process. But there's not much or any bounds checking. So I'm going to keep working on that. But to do that, I wanted it to have on the source code on the computer, so that I could mess around with it, because this is a little bit easier to work with when shifting code around than it is on here. So that's me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.